Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by Husky Harry, huggable homos who love film, to dish up a little bit of movie news and review a film, either current or classic. And this week, while you are all anxiously awaiting United States election results, I know I am. We are actually broadcasting live at the same time. A lot of these battleground states are starting to come in. So if you hear us suddenly cry out in sheer terror or glee, we're probably checking election results.
I am not watching.
You're not? Okay.
No, I'm not going to watch. I'm going to give my full attention to the show. We can put the election results down.
I make no such promise.
I make no such promise either. That's bullshit. Whatever. Anyway, you have already heard from them. You love them. I love them. Please welcome Jim Poliafico to the show. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And Will Lindis is here with us as well. Welcome, Will.
Howdy, listeners.
Oh, Will just did a shot.
That's my election
night
shot. That's not my election night shot. That is one of my election night shots. I don't know about you guys, but there's like this weird feeling of anxiety just like coursing through the air right now. So hopefully this episode will let us kind of take the edge off of it.
Let me just say this. I am two-fisting it tonight. So.
There's your hashtag.
And I have pretty big fists, so that's got to say something. But anyway.
Oh, goodness.
Really scary right now. We are like flat out of this election coverage, right? So, and the election results are rolling in, and I don't even want to know till after the podcast. Then I'll tune in.
All right.
We'll try not to spoil it for you.
Yeah.
I make no such promises to that.
Spoiler warning ahead of time. We may be spoiling the election for the United States, the President of the United States.
We'll try our best, Jim. But again, no promises. Hey, we've already got like 10 people hanging out with us. So apparently people are interested in Doctor Strange, which is the movie we are reviewing.
See? And I think it's also people that are like, oh my God, like I'm watching Florida and Florida's at 91% and what's going on? I think there's a good number of people that are just like, I need a break from this or my heart will literally explode. So I'm hoping anyone that's in that boat, I hope that we can help ease your evening out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think, there's some people out there who I'm sure who don't watch the election coverage and those who maybe just want a little respite. Maybe they've been watching since, 4 o'clock this afternoon or earlier and their nerves are on edge. And maybe we can give them a little comic relief at very least.
Maybe.
Fingers crossed.
We'll certainly do our best. But big show this week, aside from the election stuff that's happening. Of course, Doctor Strange hit theaters over this last weekend. We're excited to discuss that. Before we do that, though, we've got some movie news to catch up on. It's been a couple weeks. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, actually. I've been sitting on mine for a few weeks, so it's go time.
All right, Jim, are you all aboard the movie news train? Woo woo!
I am ready to discuss some movie news. It hasn't been a huge couple of weeks in movie news, but there's a few nuggets we've mined out.
Yeah.
We are going to share our nuggets with you because we bought a 20-piece, and sharing is caring.
Yes, right.
Sharing a 20-piece? Brad.
Will's like, this is Austin. We don't share nuggets in Austin.
No, I mean you might share if you got, but like a 20-piece? Nah, I mean I am not a little boy. Like that 20 pieces going straight in this mouth hole. But yeah, okay, I got you. I get the analogy.
You heard it here, folks. Will wants 20 pieces down his mouth hole.
Whew, stretch.
You want any sauce with that, Will?
I have a feeling there will be some.
I think we've got some creamy ranch.
Oh my god! Hey, this is good. This is what we needed this evening.
Oh goodness! All right. Well, all of that said, then here we go. Some movie news. All right, so Jim, why don't you kick us off this week? What's going on that's caught your interest?
So, I think it was last year we had a movie, or was it earlier this year? We had a movie called 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think it was last year, right?
It was the beginning of this year. It's on the 2016 list. Yeah.
There you go. So, and before that, we had the Cloverfield movie, and from the 10 Cloverfield Lane movie, we've discovered that, hey, they're kind of working on this little movie universe or story universe centered around kind of the whole Cloverfield phenomenon. And this, a couple of weeks ago, since we haven't done movie news in a while, it was reported through some online outlets that a movie that's called God Particle, that is being worked on right now, will actually be the third in the series of, let's say, loosely connected Cloverfield movies. And this movie is also going to be produced by J.J. Abrams. It's going to be directed by this gentleman named Julius Ona, who Will, I don't know if you know that director. I don't know that much about him, but
doesn't immediately come to mind.
Yeah, this movie is going to be kind of a thriller set aboard a space station. And the thought was that when 10 Cloverfield Lane came out, and it didn't really appear. I mean, there was talk about it. Oh yeah, this is kind of loosely connected to Cloverfield, and what's the connection? The thought was maybe this Cloververse, that I'm going to call it, was maybe be like a loosely coupled series of movies, kind of like an anthology, like Black Mirror or Twilight Zone, but have some connective tissue. So this movie, kind of like 10 Cloverfield Lane, was also kind of filmed in secret back just a few months ago, actually. And it's about a team of American astronauts on a space station who make a terrifying discovery. It's has big implications. So it has David Oyelowo in it, Daniel Bruhl, who we've seen in Marvel movies before, Chris O'Dowd, who we really like. And so this movie sounds kind of interesting to me, and there's a lot of little things to explore there's a viral universe associated with this Cloververse, I guess, where there's videos out there, there's audio clips, things that kind of stitch this Cloververse together in interesting ways. I am kind of excited for this movie. It's coming. God Particle is going to come out in February of 2017, which is really right around the corner. We haven't heard much about it, and I think that's good. I liked the original Cloverfield. I thought the monster alien stuff in it was really great. Some of the other stuff, the found footage, teen angsty stuff, I thought wasn't that great. We all, I think, loved 10 Cloverfield Lane. Great bottle movie. And so I'm kind of really excited for this movie and see how it all connects. We'll see in February. What do you guys think of that news? Anything there kind of excite you?
I'm all about it. I liked Cloverfield a lot. I liked 10 Cloverfield Lane a lot. So already, based on the strength of those two properties, I'm already pretty excited about God Particle. I also like the fact that each of these films has, they're part of this loosely related universe, like you mentioned, but they don't all feel like they have to necessarily write off the exact same aesthetic or the exact same plot of the others. Like each one, it's almost more like, and I guess we'll see how God Particle fits into this. It feels like it's almost shaping up more like a movie anthology than it is like a shared universe. I like that idea. I also like the idea that here we are in 2016. We've seen kind of a resurgence in horror films and science fiction films, especially those that are kind of low budget and kind of smartly written, going back to like Ex Machina from last year, 10 Cloverfield Lane from this year. So there is a lot of like juicy territory for me as a film goer. So I'm pretty excited about God Particle.
Yeah, I guess for me, I hated Cloverfield and I kind of loved 10 Cloverfield Lane. So I guess that sort of puts me squarely in the middle, law of averages, right? I'm interested to see what's coming down the pipeline because obviously the more recent film grabbed my interest. But I wouldn't say I'm like frothing at the mouth excited.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that, we've seen the approaches to these universes where, we're going to talk about Marvel movie later on, but, Marvel is building their universe, and a lot of them are like sequels or prequels or trilogies that kind of directly link together. But also outside of those things that directly link together, you have movies like Doctor Strange that kind of plugs in over here, and you've got Guardians of the Galaxy that plug in over here. And they're building a universe, but those movies aren't really necessarily linked. And I think they're trying to do the same thing here. I'm okay when movies aren't just a sequel or a prequel. And how they link together is right there in front of you. I think it's kind of interesting what they're doing here. Hopefully it'll be something that they start to fill in the holes a little bit more as we go and do it in a smart way. Smart science fiction is something I really like. And there's this movie that's coming out. There's another movie that's coming out. I think it's called Life or something like that. That I saw a trailer for recently about, scientists discovering life in space in the 60s. So, I'm excited for this one. We'll see what happens. Let's hope it comes out in February, or maybe we'll see something in South by Southwest. Who knows?
Maybe. We shall see.
Right.
All right. Will, what have you got this week?
All right. Yeah. So the movie news I've got is one that I think that most people, when we talk about these news items, we're usually talking about things that super excite us. I'm actually going to talk about one that I think has me slightly bummed out for a very weird reason. So they've recently announced, and by they, I mean J.K. Rowling and kind of the people around her, that the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them film is going to be expanded into a series of its own. At one point, they were talking about making it a 3-film franchise. Now it's going to be a 5-film franchise. Now, on one hand, that's kind of exciting. I personally loved the Harry Potter movies. They made for a great kind of like annual return to that world. Every time one of those films came out and I heard that music play, I was transfixed. I was ready to go. And to that degree, I've been kind of excited about the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them film that comes out on November 18th. That said, when I heard the news about there being 5 films, for me personally, it felt a little daunting and a little overwhelming. Almost like, and hear me out on this, I almost feel like I missing the Harry Potter franchise, if that makes sense. Like, those 8 films were really solid. I loved them so much. They ended, and now I can look back on them very fondly and think of that complete package. Now that I know that there's going to be all of them now, I feel like I'm untethered from that feeling of like nostalgia for that franchise. Now I'm 8 films out of 13 in the middle of this series, so it feels a little exhausting already when it should feel a little more rewarding. I know that's kind of a weird way to look at it. I should be excited to come back to this world 5 more times. Maybe you guys can change my mind on it. I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, Jim, I know you're not a huge Harry Potter person, so if you don't mind, I'll respond first on this one. I think for me, part of the problem is that I don't know Newt Scamander beyond what little was written about him in the Harry Potter books, right? I think he got like one of, only like 1 or 2 mentions in the movies even, so it's even less than he was mentioned in the books. So I'm excited to see this movie, but not yet knowing Newt Scamander and not yet knowing what the 1920s magical world was like, there's not enough hooks there for me to be excited about, 5 movies of this yet. Now, who knows? I may see this movie. It may blow me away. It may reconnect me to that same like Harry Potter magic that I have been missing too. And I'd be like, oh my God, my face is melting because I'm so happy. But as of right now, when I heard this news too, my first thought was, fuck you, Warner Brothers. It's just a cash cow. Like, thinly veiled grab at more money. And I hope that it's not a total shit show. But I mean, that said, we've got some power behind this. I mean, it's not like J.K. Rowling was like, oh, hey, I'll sell you the franchise, make whatever you want, George Lucas. She's very active and involved in, everything from the conceptualization to the story to working with the director for framing and how things look. I mean, this is still like her baby. It's still her world. She's very closely involved. So I guess for me, Will, to answer your question, that's kind of like a lifeboat of faith for me to get me past the next couple weeks till I can see the film. But I think if it's not a great film, I don't know, 4 more of them, not something I'm going to be happy about.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Brad. I mean, I didn't dislike the Harry Potter stuff too much. I just wasn't as, invested in it as, I guess, as you guys were with the books and the movies. I did see, I think, all of the movies. But wow, man, announcing a 5-movie plan seems really ballsy based on nothing but the success of a somewhat related series. I mean, the Harry Potter phenomenon was crazy, right? I think the books were fairly popular, right, before the movies came out, before the first movie came out, or was it?
Yeah.
How did it work?
They were already, and I forget exactly how many, but I feel like it was already like 4 or so books in before the first movie came out. I could be off on that number.
It was more than that. I think Half-Blood Prince had come out like right around the first movie or something. So it was quite a bit behind.
So now we got this new franchise, we'll call it that, of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them coming out. I'm guessing that what's in place from the books, the book of that came out, is not nearly as popular as the Harry Potter books were up when that movie first came out. So I'm trying to figure out how they're justifying this plan for 5 movies. What if they come out and they suck, or maybe they don't suck, maybe they just don't catch on, maybe they're just mildly successful. Then are you locked into the 5? It's a crazy gamble to me. It seems like.
I don't think they'll be too locked into the 5. Let's say this one absolutely tanks. It just sucks. Nobody likes it. Doesn't make any money. Think back to the Amazing Spider-Man franchise that Sony put out. After the second one of those came out, they had plans for number 3, for number 4. I think they had a Venom spinoff and a Sinister Six spinoff, and they were talking about maybe even a Black Cat spinoff. They had this huge map, kind of rivaling what Marvel was doing. And then that one came out, and it did not do very well, and they immediately scrapped that plan and went to Plan B, which was cutting a deal with Disney Marvel. So to that degree here, if this film doesn't do well, I don't think they're beholden to make the other 4. Yeah. We might see one of those come out, just depending on, maybe they want to test the waters and see how it does. But I feel like the success of it really is, this as a franchise, kind of to Brad's point, is very much going to depend on how well this first one's received.
Yeah, it kind of makes us good.
No, you go ahead.
It kind of makes a statement oh yeah, we got this 5-year movie thing planned. You're gonna love it so much. I don't know. It just seems really, yes, in a word, I don't know what the word is. That they would actually think that people are gonna fall over themselves for this universe.
Presumptive, maybe?
Yeah, presumptive.
Yeah, it's presumptive, but it is part of the Harry Potter universe, so I think they're banking on a lot of that too. It's not like this is a brand new property. This is definitely piggybacking on a very successful property.
That's true, but at the same time, you also have all these Harry Potter fans who are very attached to Harry and the world that Harry lives in. And now, yes, it's still the magical world, but it's the 1920s. Period pieces don't resonate well with young people. Maybe the Harry Potter stuff will sort of bridge that gap a little bit, but it's a gamble. I think if it were me, I would have waited till after the first opening weekend of this movie to even make that decision, much less announce it. But I don't know. Maybe they're doubling down and they're thinking announcing it ahead of time will get people to go see the movie. I don't know. All I do know is I'm excited that I will have more chances to take my wand with me to the movies.
Any excuse for Brad to whip his wand out.
Oh, yeah, you got that right.
Especially because it's totally a two-hander, so I get to have a lot of fun with that wand.
This episode alone, you've two-fisted and you've two-handed it, Brad.
Hey, whipped it out.
Hey, good things come in twos. What can I say?
That's not the only thing they come in.
Oh,
anyways,
goodness.
That was awful, and I'm terrible.
All right. Well, hey, I'm gonna go really. I'm not gonna go as long on mine as you boys did with yours, but
Is that a criticism?
No, it was a really bad sexual innuendo about
okay.
long. It didn't play well. But hey, so while we're talking about Disney, I actually have some Disney news myself. The new Beauty and the Beast movie comes out in March. I've mentioned before, I'm very excited about it. There is a Harry Potter tie-in because Hermione herself is playing Belle. So I feel like it's okay to bring this up following the Fantastic Beasts discussion. So something interesting. I was reading an interview with Entertainment Weekly why is his name suddenly escaping me? Alan Menken, who did the music for Beauty and the Beast, with his now unfortunately deceased partner, Howard Ashman, said in an interview that I guess there were some pretty risque lyrics in the original Gaston song that Disney opted not to include. They kept in the references to his hairy chest and all that stuff, which I was fine with. But of course, knowing me, knowing you. But I guess when the director found out about these unused lyrics, he got very, very excited to actually include these lyrics and add something new on top of the pre-established work. So, of course, Howard Ashman passed away before he got to hear these lyrics that he wrote used in the song. But I'm pretty excited. I mean, not because maybe there's sexually or socially risque lyrics. I mean, that's not why I'm excited. But it's almost like there's a little magical piece of this beloved movie that was in a time capsule somewhere that very few people knew about, and we just unearthed it. It could totally be crap lyrics, and that's part of why they were cut. I don't know. But I'm excited to get something that's a little bit new. Maybe there's something there that will sort of enhance our enjoyment of this tale as old as time.
Wow. Very nice that you worked all of those in. I'm excited about the movie in that, I've been less enthused about these live action remakes than the two of you have been, but this is one of my favorite animated Disney movies, so I'm definitely hoping that it'll do well, that it'll be good. And the idea that they're willing to take some chances with the music, I think, is a good one for me. It's very heartening. What are those risque lyrics? I'm very interested now. I'm writing a few in my head right now, and they're probably way worse than anything that they'll actually see on screen. But yeah, I mean, we'll see it. In fact, that's in. You said it's in March, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my God, guys! There's a possibility. I'd have to look at the calendar. We watched Cinderella together as a group during South by Southwest. We may be watching Beauty and the Beast together during South by Southwest if the calendar lines up right.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Disney doing these live action remakes of their movies. We saw how far they went and how far they took that idea with Pete's Dragon, kind of totally retooling the story and reimagining the story. I'm wondering if they're going to go in a similar direction. I know they've stripped most of I think all of the original music out of the Beauty and the Beast, from what I heard, right, Brad? I think they stripped pretty much all of it out, and they're going to put some new songs in, but I don't think it's going to be as musical as.
Oh, not what I was reading in the Entertainment Weekly article. No. They've taken most of the iconic songs, and they will be in the movie.
Oh, okay. I thought they were taking them out. Okay, so yeah, maybe this is much closer then to the original story. So so lyrics that were too risque for 1991 might be. Maybe some of them will be okay for 2017. We don't know.
And I did just check the dates, by the way. It is during South by. South by film is March 10th through the 18th. and this comes out the 17th. So it'll be that last weekend we're there. We can get it in, just like Cinderella.
We need a break.
Right? Totes.
I'm all about that.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Well,
that fits.
Interesting stuff coming down the pipeline. I can't believe March is going to be here before we know it. Hell, Thanksgiving is like 2 weeks away at this point. I can't believe
crazy
how quickly this year is going. Yet it is. Speaking of things that arrived quickly, Doctor Strange arrived over the weekend, and it seems like we've been waiting for that movie forever. So I'm really excited to talk about this film with you guys. How do we feel about switching gears and moving into our movie discussion?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so if you are new to our show, I will tell you a little bit about how this is going to work. Essentially, we are going to talk about Doctor Strange, spoiler-free, for about 10 or 15 minutes. Then we will give you fair warning before we take things to spoiler town. We'll give you plenty of opportunities to step away as needed if you're listening live. Of course, if you're listening, oh my gosh, listening, digital tape delay, you can use our handy dandy show index to skip around as needed. But all of that said, here we go. Our discussion of Doctor Strange. All right, so Will, you are probably the one person who is most excited about these Marvel movies compared to Jim and myself. Thought it only fitting for you to introduce this movie. Tell us a little bit about this setup. You don't have to go too deep because most people know, but also just whether you think this was worth checking out in theaters, if you think this is more of a rental or a skip.
Yeah, totally. So Doctor Strange is the latest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. And for those that aren't aware of the character or don't know much about him, he is probably the major magical character in the Marvel Universe. He is the guy, he is the Sorcerer Supreme. He's the mystic. Quick synopsis, after his career is destroyed, a brilliant but arrogant surgeon, Stephen Strange, he gets this new lease on life when a sorceress takes him under her wing and trains him to defend the world against a mystical evil. For me, this is a solid 4-star movie. As all of these Marvel movies kind of fall in that category, this is a company that knows how to put out a solid film, and once again, they put out a very, very solid film here. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is really solid here. I was a little worried that he was going to come across as maybe Tony Stark 2.0, but I feel like the arrogance that he portrayed on his screen came across a little more practically minded than like Stark's blustery bravado. So I felt like there was a strong difference between those characters. I've even talked on the show about how Cumberbatch is one of those guys who I don't always connect with as an actor. I think he connected with this material quite well. Really good supporting cast here. We had Chiwetel Ejiofor, Benedict Wong, Rachel McAdams, all turned in really solid work. We had Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, which is, I don't know how much we want to go down this road. It's very problematic for a lot of reasons, but at the same time, I liked what she did. It was very interesting. So in terms of what I saw on screen, I liked it. Mads Mikkelsen is a really solid villain. They actually gave him some good humor, kind of a few good humorous lines in there as well. This film is all about the special effects, though. I think that's the true hero of this film. It's very much The Matrix meets Inception with trippy psychedelic visuals that warp reality and feel almost like a drug trip, which is perfect because even though this is a character from the 1960s, he became very popular in the 1970s amongst like the LSD, the tune in, drop out crowd. Like that's his background with psychedelic artwork. And it was nice to see that make its way on screen. A lot of cool effects here. We'll talk about a few more of those as we go a little deeper, but I really like this film. Certainly one that I recommend strongly to watch on the big screen. I saw it in 2D. I feel like this one might even warrant watching in 3D as well, although I can't say that with conviction. How'd you guys feel though?
Yeah, Will, I think you missed out, and you're going to need to see it again because the 3D was pretty amazing, I have to say.
Right on.
You mentioned a lot of those trippy effects. There's also some really cool stuff that's done with like perspective shifting, and you see it a lot in the trailers. Like as reality is warping, like buildings are folding, rooms are turning. You go from being on the floor to like being on the ceiling. And I've been playing a lot of PlayStation VR lately, which, by the way, fucking incredible. I love it, and I love that immersion that it brings. And so I haven't seen a 3D movie that kind of comes close to that same sort of immersion level yet. But Doctor Strange is probably the closest I would say I've ever seen, just in terms of how it plays with depth of field and sort of 3D camera trickery to make you feel like, Stephen Strange is being sucked along this like vortex. You're kind of being pulled along there with him. Had a little camera effect.
As you did that, you've totally defocused your camera with your hand at the same time.
I like it.
Way to go.
Yep, it's what I do. In any event, I am totally unfocused right now, so I will fix that. There we go. But yeah, so I mean, from a visual standpoint, fantastic stuff. From a plot perspective, not as great. I mean, yeah, it's an origin story, which is good. If you're not familiar with Doctor Strange, it's good to get his origin story down, I guess. But it just feels like we take so much time getting there that by the time we have some of these like Sorcerer Supreme, battles and stuff going on, I don't know. I think it could have been paced better for me. I will say I love Tilda Swinton. I know there's a little bit of controversy there because she's, obviously not the same Ancient One that we had in the comics. We can even talk a little bit more in spoilers about like one specific line that was thrown out to explain why she's not, an old Asian man. But I did enjoy her in this film. Chiwetel Ejiofor, I thought was great as well. He's got some good humor in there. I'm interested to talk about some certain things with his character when we get to spoilers. You mentioned Mads Mikkelsen, Will. This guy just chews up scenery. I think the first time I remember seeing him in a movie was Casino Royale, Daniel Craig's first Bond film. He played the villain there with like the weeping eye. And I was like, that dude is a creepy mofo. And in this
seriously
movie,
needs some Visine. Seriously.
He does. In this movie,
right.
He's totally got like that psoriasis from the Mandarin shit from Iron Man 3 like going on with his eyes. And I'm like, dude, you need to get that looked at. But in any event, Rachel McAdams was good too. I really loved Benedict Wong, though. I love me some Marco Polo from Netflix. He plays the Khan of Khans on that show. And I've seen him pop up in a few things now this year, and it always makes me sort of like squeal and giggle at the same time. Would that be a squiggle? I squiggled in delight. I don't know. I'm coining a new term. But yeah, I mean, it's got a great cast. Benedict Cumberbatch. People make fun of his name. It's funny, but you know what? Hats off to you, sir. Props to you. I was a little worried that it was going to be a little weird, but he did a great job. I think he did the character some good service here. So this one's a go see for me. Jim, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, this was, you guys know I'm not a huge superhero movie fan, but this was a fun movie. I had a good time with it, mostly. We did see it in 3D, not IMAX, but, a really good-sized screen with a good sound setup, nice reclining seats, the whole bit. I really dug the first act of this movie, and lots of people and critics, especially in kind of the comic movie world, seem to kind of crap all over origin stories. It seems like kind of a thing to do. It's like, oh God, here we go, another origin story. But sometimes they're the most interesting thing about the character. When the action develops, if the plot doesn't offer anything new, and I would insist that this plot really doesn't really offer much new in terms of like superhero plots. I think that was the case here. I think this origin story was really interesting, especially because of Tilda Swinton and that character. I am not a comic book fan, so I don't know what the original Ancient One was or is or how that was characterized. And I love Tilda Swinton in everything, so I was a little bit nervous to see her kind of take on, a superhero movie role and see what she could do with it. But of course, she didn't let me down. I think a lot of people agreed that she was kind of amazing in this movie. I loved her character. I think this movie, and maybe this is how the story goes, but I think this movie made a misstep in its story with that character, and it reminded me of the Godzilla 2014 movie, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Ejiofor is great. I love him. I love to see him, though, in more emotional roles. In this movie, he didn't really have that, so I felt he was a little bit wasted in this movie. All I'm going to say is I thought the movie was very well done visually. It looked great, but once you got to about a third of the way through, about halfway through, it really just kind of fell back on standard comic book movie fare with, battle. Here's the villain. Here's the big bad. You got to battle them. There's big battles, danger, effects, and then 2 stingers, and you're done. But I guess when the cookie cutter part kind of comes into play, that's where I tend to lose it a little bit. But I did like the setup. I'm interested in the character. I want to see what they do with it next. It's a recommend for me. I'm somewhere around you guys between maybe a 3.5, 4-star movie for me.
All right, so it's a pretty solid C, not C as in the letter C.
I was about to say,
that's a go C.
Your extrapolation.
It's a go C.
It's a go C. Yeah,
it's a go C from the Movie Bears podcast. So I don't think we need to spend a lot more time in our pre-spoiler section, honestly, now that we've gotten our sort of opinions out. Go see this film. We definitely recommend that you do. But I'm going to go ahead and move us into the spoiler dimension.
Play the Star Trek music.
Oh, man, we're going to talk about that. Let me tell you. Spoilers are officially fair game for Doctor Strange. So, as I mentioned earlier, if you have not seen the film yet, if you're watching live, go ahead, put us on mute for 20 minutes, come back for plugs. If you are listening on digital tape delay, go ahead and skip around using the time index as needed. Let's talk about that music for just a quick second. I think it's a great place to start, Jim, because you mentioned it. Michael Giacchino did the score for this movie, and it totally shows because it's the same goddamn score from all the Star Trek movies with a couple notes changed. I'm like, really? I was actually really surprised by that.
I think what you're seeing is, with any artist, with any composer, you start to sense patterns, right? And style. And I think that's kind of what we're getting here. No, it's not exactly the same score as Star Trek, but it has a lot of the same motifs kind of buried in it and rearranged, and kind of the arrangement, orchestra arrangements and stuff kind of call to mind some of Michael Giacchino's previous work. And so it comes across as,
I swear at one point he's casting a spell and it's dun 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 dun.
I'm kind of rationalizing it, but yeah, the similarities are there. You can tell it's a Michael Giacchino score. Does that mean it's bad? No, it's a good score because I love those Star Trek scores too.
Actually, I really like this score. Yeah,
I don't think it stood out as a oh my, the score for Doctor Strange was so memorable because blank. But maybe you heard something that we didn't.
Yeah, especially the stuff over the closing credits, I thought was to me, actually, I walked out of it going this is some of my favorite stuff from a recent Marvel movie. So I had a slightly different experience with the score. I really liked what I heard.
I'm not saying I didn't like the score. Of course I love the score. I love the score from the Star Trek movies. And I did like some of the different stuff that he did, especially at the end with sort of the Castlevania harpsichord piano thing sort of playing over the Star Trek theme. I thought that was a really, really cool touch. I just think it didn't differentiate itself enough from previous things, I guess, that he's he's done in the Star Trek movies.
I mean, I especially liked whenever he included, like, there was a lot of stuff that included the sitar, which really kind of gave it like that, like, mystic
Trippy.
illness. Yeah. So especially the stuff like anytime where the sitar made a guest appearance, just often enough, I was on board.
But could we not have gotten like a sorcerer's hat broom sitar, like walking around?
What are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm being silly, I guess. Mickey, the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Like, there's a broom with like buckets of water, and at one point it has the hat on, and it's walking around. And anyway, dumb.
I get you. No, we're tracking together.
In any event, all right. So score aside, now we can fair use it because we've critiqued it a little bit. Where do we want to start with plot spoilers?
I guess one thing that I liked, and I wasn't able to mention this before, was when I was talking about effects, but I really liked the time reversal stuff. We got to see a couple of scenes that really utilized his Eye of Agamotto to turn back time. And what I liked so much about it was it wasn't just like time just like reversed and it stopped. There was a neat little effect where he would continue to move forward as things played backwards and reverse. And what that set up for me with some really neat like set pieces that felt unlike anything that I've seen recently. In some ways, it reminded me of, remember how much we really enjoyed in Ant-Man? We had some really fun set pieces that all played with like size. Well, these had a lot that played with like the forward and backward momentum of time. Those are some of my favorite set pieces.
Or kind of like in the X-Men movies with what's his name, right? I mean, he doesn't go backwards, but he slows it down, and he's able to move at normal speed, but everything else is kind of slowed down, right? In his unit. So it's a similar thing but different.
Yeah, and what's interesting, one of the things I loved about Smallville was, and I know DC Marvel, I promise I'm going somewhere. Back in 2001 when Smallville was on, and it showed Clark Kent running at super speed, sometimes you'd see him like whoosh, whoosh away, but most of the time, you had this like slow motion thing going where everything else was kind of frozen, and he's like moving around droplets of rain or like moving in between people, sort of that same effect, right? What I really liked sort of seeing something similar here with the time manipulation was that not only could he do it for himself, Doctor Strange, but he could also like bring other people into his like time control, right? Like at one point, he gets the Chiwetel Ejiofor character with him. Then Benedict Wong is with him. And like they're all kind of, it's not even like overstated. Like you just see them looking around like, oh my fucking God, like what is going on here? What's happening? It could have been like a specific like, Doctor Strange, what have you done? This is crazy. But it was just sort of a subtle like, this is cool. Okay, magic. I'm with it. I thought that was a nice touch.
I especially like the way that effect looked when someone was pulled out of the normal time stream and pulled out, and it kind of felt, that's why I said it was sort of Matrix meets Inception. Like there was definitely sort of like a little like rifty, glitchy thing that happened as they were kind of like ripped asunder. So I liked that quite a bit. I thought it was really neat, and it set up a really fun climax that was a little different than some of the ones that we see sometimes in these superhero movies. That particular, like a lot of times the final fight is all about some sort of like how you do the final hit on the big bad, or who's going to use their super ultra move or whatever. But in this kind of weird mystical world that's set up, the rules of time and dimensions and magic and stuff set up an in-game scenario that was actually about tricking the final guy as opposed to like hitting him with a big magic bolt or something. And I thought you without all the setup that goes into it, you don't get that finale. And I think that finale was crucial for what set this film apart.
I totally agree. And one thing that Jim, you had said to me when we were walking out of the movie, you were like, felt a little Doctor Who-y at some points. And that's true, especially in that end scene, where they're sort of reliving the time loop. Right, and Benedict Cumberbatch is being all like, snarky about it. I was totally getting like a blend of like the 10th and 11th Doctor like distilled into Doctor Strange. And I don't know. I totally dug the fact that like this big, huge, like glowing Thanos clone guy, whoever he is, what was his name? Ombudsman? Hambubu something?
Wait, what? In this one?
The big bad dude.
Yeah, Dormammu.
Dormammu. I don't know. I know his real name. I'm just playing for laughs. But anyway, I thought it was great that it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to hit you with a magic blast in a certain spot, or I'm going to cast you into the realm of demons where you'll never be heard from again. It was, I'm going to trick you and put you in a spot where you have to make a deal with me to get your ass off my fucking planet. I thought that was brilliant. Way better than the fucking Thor movies. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, what did you think of that setup for the ending?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty novel. The way they had set that up with Doctor Strange. Like I said, you're going to make a deal with me. It was a little reminiscent of we had just seen Jack Reacher 2, and Jack Reacher 2's in the diner. Jack Reacher's in the diner, and he's like, "This is what's going to happen in the next 90 seconds. That phone's going to ring. And you're gonna." It's kind of like he kind of predicted, how things were going to go down, and he was a little cocky about it, and it was a similar kind of setup for me.
Guys, do you remember like for years now, people have been saying, I really think Benedict Cumberbatch should play the Doctor. Like when 12 ends, it should be him. When 13 ends, it should be him. Well, here's a situation where he trolled us. Benedict Cumberbatch did play the Doctor, Doctor Strange, and he beat the big mystical enemy using a Doctor Who strategy. You're absolutely right. Yeah, this was our Doctor moment.
Yeah, and it definitely felt like something you could definitely see on a Doctor Who episode near the end. He's dealing with this bad guy, and he's telling him how things are going to go. The bad guy's getting frustrated and finally gives up and says, "Okay, whatever." What'd you guys think of the cape? The cape is like a character, right? It's like a pet character.
This is the only time I first of all, that's one of my pet peeve things, because I think that gets overused a lot of times. Like, oh, the sun in the background was a character. The score was a character.
Yeah.
The setting was a character. It's like, no, those aren't fucking characters. That's setting. That's score. Those are set pieces. Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Storytelling. This actually was a character because the cape actually had personality and motivations that it tried. So the cape was a character. So I'll 100% go with that.
It took actions on its own, right? Of its own accord, right?
Yes.
It did some things. Some of those were done for effect and for comedic effect, which I thought were pretty funny toward the end. I wasn't sure what was going on at first in the movie when the cape first appeared, because I forget what it was. He's like in a battle, and the guy's trying to hit him or something, and the cape keeps getting in the way. And I wasn't sure what was happening in that scene. And then it finally hit me. Oh yeah, that's this cape I've been hearing about, because everybody had been talking about the cape and this and that. And again, remember, I don't really know the Doctor Strange character and what his deal is. But yeah, I kind of like that a little bit. And he kind of walks into the room near the end, and of course now they're like in synchronicity, and the cape knows exactly when to fly onto him and wrap around him and stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Did it remind either of you of the rug from Disney's Aladdin? Because that's totally what I kept thinking of. It reminded me so much of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was exactly the feel that I was getting. I was also getting a little bit of the footstool from Beauty and the Beast that was formerly a dog that was changed into a poofy footstool. But yeah, I mean, I definitely liked that the cape was handled that way. And I don't know the comics enough to know, is the comic sort of a character like that in the comics?
I haven't read enough of the trippy Doctor Strange era to know for sure. But I've never seen his cape do that in any of the comics I've read. So I say this as I'm not the biggest Doctor Strange reader, so I don't have that much of knowledge there. But I've never seen that.
Well, I know.
Go ahead.
I know Bill Zanowitz would probably know, but he's like chomping his fingers somewhere on election night right now. So unfortunately, we can't pick his brain. But I'm curious. Maybe we'll have to do some research. Jim, what were you going to say?
He's too busy to yell through his computer at us, I'm sure. But the thing I was referring to earlier, Tilda Swinton, you said something about she had a line that kind of explained that she was different from the ancient one. Can you please tell me what that is? And then I want to get back and talk about her character.
She didn't have a line. Another character had a line. They basically said that she was an ancient master that an ancient Celtic master that came to them, as opposed to her like growing up, and being a master in Nepal or wherever they were. So he very deliberately was like, she's a Celt. That's why she's white.
Which is better than, think back to kind of like a lot of, like, there's been a lot of really bad examples in Hollywood of them casting a white person in an Asian role and then like using prosthetics to like slant eye them and like, and so that's a very real concern for what they could have done with Tilda Swinton here, like trying to pass her off as Asian. I think that would have been particularly insulting. As it is, I feel like this probably didn't show the most foresight. They probably could have gotten any number of Asian actors to play this role and not have to switch it over for a Celtic character. I think making the switch from male to female is actually pretty smart here because it sort of diffuses a little bit of what they were trying to do was avoid like the stereotypical like ancient Chinese master Fu Manchu type role. And I get so changing it from male to female I think helps a lot there, but I think changing it to a white character I think presents new problems. If you get someone like a Michelle Yeoh or someone like that in this role instead, I think that you have you probably I think you kind of get the best of both worlds. That said, I did like Tilda Swinton here, so it's nothing against.
Yeah, I liked her too, and it was kind of interesting because like at one point I turned to Jim and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Aang from The Last Airbender. She's totally like airbending, and she totally had that like air nomad look thing going on.
Yeah, and that was right before the part of the movie where, again, it's like, oh, I wish they hadn't. And this is the spoiler, but we're in the spoiler sections. They killed her off about half to 2/3 of the way through the movie. And now maybe that's the way the story goes in the comics. I don't know. I don't know why they would kill that character off because
hero's journey, Jim. Hero's journey.
Yeah, you got to kill off the master for the Well,
how can he become the Sorcerer Supreme if there's still a Sorcerer Supreme hanging on?
Yeah, it's like, what is he going to be, like the Sorcerer Medium? Like, they have the Sorcerer Pepperoni only? Like, no, you got to kill her off so that he can become the Sorcerer Supreme.
Other properties have handled that and kept the Sorcerer around for a while to maybe teach other sorcerers or whatever. I don't know. It just seemed odd to me. Like I said, when they killed off Bryan Cranston in Godzilla 2014, that was a huge misstep. I don't think this was as big a misstep. I was just sad to see her go because I really liked the character.
Well, here's one thing to consider. Magic. Maybe she has passed on, but that doesn't mean we're not going to see her again. Maybe maybe he'll be able to conjure her spirit up and talk to her.
Well, exactly what I thought. Like when she's laying on the ground after she fell, I don't know how many stories, and she couldn't save herself for some reason, being the mystical, magical power. I'm like, okay, something's going to happen, and they're going to bring her back to life. It's all good. This is a comic book movie after all. We're going to see her again. And we didn't in this movie, which like props to the movie for like killing somebody, main character, and keeping them dead for a while at least. Who knows? Maybe we'll see her back again in the next movie. I'm not sure, but
she Obi-Wan'd herself.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I mean,
did she?
You could, in theory, see sort of like the Jedi thing for kind of hovering in the background, or use the Eye of Agamotto, Stephen.
A translucent ancient one rises from her body. It's like, yes, you didn't learn. What was the line she had?
We saw that.
Yeah, did we?
We saw her like leave her body because he like runs after her right, in astral form or whatever, and she's like standing there, like, you know, looking at the lights in the bridge over the bay, right? And he has this last conversation with her, and then she's gone. So, you know, if she's this ancient mystical sorceress, whatever,
she'll live in some realm.
Maybe she has uploaded herself to like San Junipero or something, and like she's just waiting for Stephen Strange to come hang out.
I also had another question. Will, maybe you might know the answer to this. When the dude at the beginning with the first guy who supposedly got healed by her, the guy playing basketball, right? He says, "Oh, you have to go to," and I forget the name of the place, like Comanche or whatever the name of the place was where the Ancient One was hanging out. All he did was
Gardenia.
He told them the name, and then he says, "Oh." And then the next thing you know, he's in Kathmandu, right? Nepal, somewhere.
Right.
Like, I don't know how he connected the pieces, because this is supposedly some... The guy only told him the name of the place. He didn't tell him where it was or anything. Like, and all of a sudden he's in the neighborhood. I was a little confused by that. Did they drop some of the story out there, maybe?
I don't know. Like I just heard,
right.
Honestly, I just heard them say the name of a place that starts with a K, and then he went to Kathmandu. So I missed that they gave him a name instead.
Yeah. So here's my
and
thing. We saw lots of sorcerer apprentices training there. I'm assuming they've probably got some kind of Google presence. You know, most people think it's a flim-flam sham, whatever. They probably have a website, Alternative Healing in Kathmandu. But, you know, he probably Googled that term, found reference to it in Nepal, even though it didn't tell him exactly where in Kathmandu it would be.
Maybe.
And found it. Could
be. Can we talk about stingers?
Totes.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm trying to remember. We had was it the first stinger that set up the next Doctor Strange movie?
It sets up the next Thor movie.
Oh, right. So it was the second stinger then I'm thinking of. Right. So the first stinger sets up a Thor movie, and I guess Odin is coming back to town, coming back to life, coming back to town and we're bringing the whole Thor family back together again, right? And Doctor Strange is going to help. And
I'm confused because I thought Loki killed Odin. Maybe am I misremembering Thor 2?
Gosh, I don't remember much on Thor 2. He's either full on dead or he's
cast out.
But I think he's dead. For me, what I kind of liked about the mid stinger is that I think of all the different main Avenger characters, the one that has the closest tie to some sort of magic is Thor. I mean, granted, it's not quite the same, but it is like, Asgard magic, which, they've said is like technology to us, whatever. I don't know. I think it's a good way to bring Doctor Strange into the fold, because everyone's coming into the fold somehow. That's just how these movies interconnect. And I think Thor's a great way to do that, especially since we haven't seen him as recently because he was left out of Civil War.
Right. Good point. Then the second singer, Chiwetel Ejiofor, is evil now.
Mm-hmm. And he's going after that first dude for some reason. I don't know what's going on there. But he's taking back something that the first guy had, and who knows what he's gonna do with that? What he's gonna do with the guy? It's interesting to see.
I think he just took his power, right? He sucked away all his magic.
Yeah, so what we found out. Yeah, and so not even his magic healing. What they kind of revealed there was that. I guess healing itself doesn't really. I think they said this somewhere in there that you can't really heal using the magic. That's why the Ancient One wasn't able to heal up. That's why, even him, he wasn't able to magically heal his legs. What he was able to do, that character, was use all of his magical power and just kind of funnel it through his body and use that to stabilize his body and move around. So he's not healed, but his magic is moving him around. So when you pull that away, Yeah. So what Baron Mordo's thing there at the end was, he was all like, you know what? Magic's being used irresponsibly, so I'm going to take all the magic from everybody. That's what I've learned from this whole thing. And when he pulls that back away from him, it's because he was never healed. He was just using magic to augment himself. He's now left crippled again.
Right. Yep.
Ah.
All right. Any final thoughts?
No. Like I said, I think the movie's fine. I think it works very well. I enjoyed it for the most part. It had a lot of the same kind of cookie cutter stuff. I guess the next Marvel movie I'm really looking forward to is the next Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
I kind of like. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I kind of like these standalone movies a little bit more. I think finding out.
When does Guardians come out?
Let's find out. Because we've got a whole slate of... Yeah, that's the next one of these movies anyway. So Guardians of the Galaxy comes out on May 5th of next year. Spider-Man is July 7th of next year. And Thor is November 3rd of next year. So those are the three we've got next year.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and move on to some plugs then as we look to wrap up. I want to drop a quick plug for the movie we're going to be reviewing on next week's show. Will, you've actually already seen this movie, so say a word and I will fucking cut you. Love in my heart. And that, of course, is Arrival. That opens wide this coming weekend. Been hearing some great things. Love me some Amy Adams, so I'm very, very jazzed to see this movie. Jim, I think you're excited too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely excited. I'm going to try to squeeze in the short story before I see the movie. I've got the book in soft cover. It's an anthology of science fiction short stories. It's not a novel. It's not based on a novel. It's based on a short story. So I should be able to get it in. It's just that I've been reading the anthology stories in order, and I haven't got to that one yet. So I might skip ahead, read that one before we see the movie. But I'm very excited to see this one.
Yeah, you guys are going to love the part where...
I have a wand.
Go ahead.
I have a wand, Will. I have a wand.
Yeah, I've plugged this one already. I've got nothing to say on it.
All right.
Clip your mouth together here.
No, you know me. I don't like the spoilers.
Hey, Jim, show that again.
So, what is that?
That's our Movie Bears podcast chip clip.
Mm-hmm, it is.
Oh, very fun.
Movie Bears podcast, the chip clip. Anyway.
It's broken. But we saw the trailer for it recently. I think we might have saw it. Did we see it this past weekend? I don't know if we saw that.
We did. Yep.
And I was a little disappointed that I saw it. So we saw two trailers. I'm still blocking out the Rogue One trailer, and that came on the screen. So I had to do the whole like ma, 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 kind of thing when that came on. And I should have done it for the Arrival because I had only seen the first teaser trailer. And I kind of wanted to stay a little pure on that and just read the short story going in. But there's one particular quick cut in that trailer that I did not appreciate. And I won't give it away, but it has to do with the appearance of creatures. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Wah, 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 wah. Sorry, babe.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, what's your plug this week?
My plug is we were away for a weekend getaway in California, but didn't get to see a lot of movies other than Doctor Strange. But I did see a documentary from 2015 that's on Netflix now. So if you have Netflix, you can watch it, called Man vs. Snake. I don't know, Brad, I don't know if you saw any of it while we were there. I was watching it in the house. Pretty cool documentary, kind of on the idea of the one that they did for King of Kong. Same basic idea. You have this guy, his name is Tim McVeigh, unfortunately, not the Tim McVeigh of Oklahoma City. This was a kid who back in the 90s or the 80s, was the first video gamer to reach a score of 1 billion with a B on any console video game, and that game happened to be Nibbler. And it's all about, his high score, him trying to best his high score, other people that supposedly bested his high score, head-to-head competitions, kind kind of that whole video game console, era that we're all very familiar with, right? You guys grew up a little bit in that era. We all remember it, that kind of bygone era of like kind of in arcade consoles, and I thought that was really cool. It brings light on kind of this more obscure video game called Nibbler, which to me kind of looked like Centipede almost. I don't, kind of like a cross between Centipede and Pac-Man or something like that. It was really cool. It had some great documentary sequences, archival footage. It had some animation. Man versus Snake, The Long and Twisted Tale of Nibbler is the name of it. And it's on Netflix right now.
Yeah, co-signed. It's good.
I think I had a similar game on my old Nokia phone that I could play.
Maybe. I don't know what they did to it afterwards.
Or even one of those like Texas Instruments calculators. Sometimes you download like that version of that game.
Right.
I've got a poster somewhere here that Tim McVeigh signed because we did that at a festival screening in 2015, and it's really fun. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of a different kind of a take on aging and trying to reclaim what you once had maybe in your youth and how difficult that can be and how those things sometimes pass you by. And there's kind of this undercurrent story of that going on in this movie, which I appreciated. So see it. Check it out. Man versus Snake.
All right. Awesome. Will, close us out for plugs.
All right. So the movie I want to plug is one that I didn't have on my radar at all this year. But I was talking with one of our friends who actually met him at South by last year, Fernando Andres. Yeah. And so we were chatting about just what our movies, our favorite ones of the year were. And he turned me on to one called Other People. Completely missed this film. And yeah, guys, it's really good. This one stars Jesse Plemons, who we talked about a couple times here. He was in Breaking Bad. He was in Black Mass, which came out last year, I believe. It also stars Molly Shannon and Bradley Whitford, and it's this guy. He's like Jesse Plemons. He's this comedy writer, kind of like Upright Citizens Brigade, kind of like that level of dead stand-up, did improv, and is trying to get a writing gig. Well, he's just broken up with his boyfriend, and his mother, Molly Shannon, has cancer, so he's going to move back home and live with her, his father, Bradley Whitford, who doesn't quite accept them, and his two younger sisters. And it follows this year of them living together and just kind of going through all the different things that you go through. And, man, this film is a real tough watch in that, like, it feels very, very down to earth and very sincere and very grounded. At the same time, it doesn't pull any of its emotional punches, nor does it amplify any of them falsely. It's a very sincere film. This one will hit you with the emotions. If you are the type to cry at movies, this one will get you. It's right now on Amazon Video, so it is available to rent. It's called Other People, and guys, it is really, really good.
Definitely been on my radar, Will, for a while. It's on my list that I keep on my iPhone of movies to watch that I haven't gotten to yet. Yeah, I love Jesse Plemons. Molly Shannon just doesn't do enough movies. I'd love to see her in more movies, but we don't get to see her much. This is a drama, kind of a family/emotional drama. I'm really looking forward to seeing it, and I know it's out there just waiting for me to have time to watch it.
Indeed. All right. Well, that brings us to a close for this week. Great show, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us live for our Doctor Strange review. And thanks for checking out our back catalog. I was looking again today. Guys, our Silver Linings Playbook show got some play this weekend.
Oh. Wow. Yeah. That one's not the first. It's not the first time that was like come up. But
that was like 2 or 3, episode 2 or 3, right?
Yeah. Definitely. So, I'm cognizant of the fact that we're approaching our 4-year anniversary in like a month and 2 weeks. That'll be our Star Wars Rogue One show. How cool is it that we get to celebrate our anniversary every year for the next 4 years with Star Wars movies?
Right, and right after all of like the what do we have before that? The Hobbit movies too, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, those were always something to talk about. Like I love the fact that there's this new thing that's happened where December is now a weird little. In addition to all of the Oscar movies, it's a tentpole blockbuster month, but just a little segment of it, like right around the holidays, you get your Harry Potters, you get your your films like that. So I'm cool. I'm very cool that the Star Wars films will be able to grow with them.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. All right, everyone. We will see you next week. I'm afraid to look at election results, but that's the first thing I'm going to do.
Be fearless.
Oh, yeah.
I glanced and I started drinking.
Oh, God. All right. Got to prepare for this shit. Anyway, Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time if we're still allowed to exist a week from now. Good night, everybody. Bye.
Remember us fondly.
Bye-bye.